So, as I said, I'm Thomas Hall, Executive Director of CleanStart, and I would like to welcome to our CleanStart Perspectives, Angel Malachor, founder and CEO of INNCHRG, who is the recent UC Davis Big Bang winner. He's fueled by his passion for strategy, operations, market, and shareholder engagement. And if those sound like just words, if you go and check out what he's done, he's worked with a lot of political campaigns and consulting on that in the past. And as we all know, one thing that politicians love to do, it's connect with people and engage with people. So he has experience in this. And also, he lives by the quote, and he's probably gonna have to correct me on how to pronounce this, Audentes fortuna levat, which means, and I'll let him take it away.
Favors the bold, and INNCHRG, when we think about what INNCHRG is trying to accomplish, it's really trying to do something that the industry for electrical vehicles has been struggling to accomplish. So INNCHRG has a solution that is bold and that is really striving to solve that dilemma with electrical vehicle charging. So let me tell you a little bit about INNCHRG. INNCHRG is the Airbnb for electrical vehicle charging. And before I dig into a little bit more about the presentation, I just want to say thank you, Gary, for having us here. Thomas, thank you. And also for, I want to say thank you to CleanStart for giving us this opportunity to talk about, our bold solution to making and enhancing the electrical vehicle infrastructure. So now let me tell you a little bit about the origins of INNCHRG. I think it's important. If you would have asked me 2.5 years ago what I would be doing, Thomas, I would have told you that I would be in my last year of law school and that I will be practicing environmental and social justice once I graduated. All that changed about 2 years ago when I was visiting an innovation museum abroad. I realized that all my life I've been a steward of the environment and also fighting for social justice. And I realized that I've been doing this for 15 years. 15 years of being a steward of the environment, working with politicians to promote the right legislation that would enhance greener communities. While I was visiting this innovation museum, I realized that my impact could be greater if I could just build it. And I got a vision on how we could advance the adaptation of electrical vehicle usage throughout the world. And by the way we accomplish this is by enhancing the way people charge. And INNCHRG was born. The INNCHRG, what INNCHRG is. INNCHRG is a marketplace for all electrical vehicle drivers to find a charge on the go or to book days ahead. We also want to create the opportunity for anyone to provide a charge. So when you think about some of the issues with electrical vehicle charging, people struggle to find that electrical vehicle charge that's reliable. So creating the incentive for individuals to potentially make money by providing a charge. If you have a level 2 charger at home, you could join our marketplace. And if you don't have a level 2 charger at home, you could buy one and join our marketplace. So, and we enhance these features we enhance the electrical vehicle ownership by letting drivers review and book a charge. And the idea of being able to book a charge anywhere. For example, Gary, if you are driving from Seattle to San Francisco, I mean, the idea is to provide a network that is very distributed, and you go through our app and you're able to find that very convenient charge that is where you're going. And by providing this marketplace platform, we could enhance the infrastructure. Anyone could be electricity is everywhere, and the idea is the ability to find that charge anywhere you go. So we are creating this network that is distributed. And in addition, we want to make sure that when you join, if you're a driver and you're joining through our app, you know what you're paying right off the bat. So we want to make sure that the rate is a flat rate starting off. And also it lets providers know what they're getting in return. But overall, what we're trying to accomplish here is that guaranteed charge. And we accomplish this by making sure that individuals have the ability to search, review listings, and either book on the spot or book days ahead. And this is part of our technology, either through the mobile app or through going through the desktop. And the overall goal is to put people in charge.
Okay, thank you, Angel. So we talk a lot about target market, and I think you'll all be pleased and relieved to know that we are starting here in California, where there's just been such an immense movement towards EV adoption. There's a lot of infrastructure that's already in place to be able to handle that. But we know by 2025, it's estimated that 23 million EV drivers will be on the streets, hit the roads here in the US. That's about 7 million car sales per year. And of those right now, the EV owners that are out there, the 1.7 million, 80% have these chargers in their homes already placed where they're either already a level 2 charger or they can be easily upgraded to level charge. So that basically gives us an early market of close to 1.4 million units just out there today. So imagine that growth potential in those 23 million that we're going to see here in the future. INNCHRG and the way that we're developing it, because it's very community-based, will be scalable. We expect that anywhere a market will be growing with EV ownership, we can scale there. And of course, EV sales are forecasted to grow exponentially. It's going to happen. It is the future of transportation. One particular component that's really exciting about California is not just the legislative space and the permit space, but also that solar has such a rampant adoption here. And that really helps because one of the issues related to this is, of course, our energy infrastructure and being able to provide baseload power that can sustain the amount of electricity that we'll need for our transportation. And again, just looking at our overall market, and starting here in California, we're looking at 23 million EV drivers as total, and 80% of these already can be channels. They already have level 2 chargers or units at home that can be converted. We expect with our marketplace to be able to capture about 500 million charging events by 2025. This is just stage 1. We are looking to capture about 20% of the US charging market. And our pricing model, as Angel mentioned, is we're trying to keep it pretty simple. We're trying to keep it really transparent. We think that's important. That's modeled after a lot of other successful businesses that use some dynamic pricing, but also keep it very clear. How much are you going to be charged? When you're a user of this technology, you want to pull up your app, you want to look for the space that you need to go, you want to book in advance, and you want to know how much you're going to be charged at the end of the day. So we really value that as a customer need. And it's going to include the electricity cost, the electricity overhead, and then of course a reservation fee, which will be flat. So the way it'll work is when the EV driver purchases on the spot or in advance, 40% will be going to INNCHRG, and our current split is at 60% will actually be going to the provider. This will be for the reservation fee, for use of service, to upkeep, and for, of course, covering the electricity that they will be using. Again, think if you have solar, you have a different dynamic here, which would be fantastic. Our financial projections are really, again, based on this huge growth that we expect. We also sort of take a little bit of a conservative look in terms of the millions of EVs in California versus the revenue that we see. But you can see from here, we expect a market penetration within the first 5 years of about 25% here in California. We know that the market is ripe for this. We know that it's going to see explosive growth. We know that the fleets and other heavy vehicles will also be putting a lot of need on the market, and that residential users are going to need to have this for emergency and daily use. And our revenue is also driven by what our needs are. So we definitely expect to have out the gate revenue. That's an exciting thing for a startup. Usually there can be a very long lag period between that and sort of a valley. But because this is going to be out there in use, we do expect to see that, which is a really, like I said, an exciting thing. But we know that we're going to have to put a lot of effort and a lot of cost into building the hardware, building the software, ensuring that there's safety features in place, making sure that we're getting out there and marketing, that it's approaching people, that it's approaching a lot of markets that we really want to address. And this includes not just medium density, but high density and low density areas, which are all going to be important as people start to purchase EVs. And just sharing that this is something that's available. You're sitting on the lot, you're thinking about buying an electric vehicle. If you know this exists, it's going to add to the value proposition of purchasing that vehicle. We hope it'll bring people over the edge. And the last thing is really competitive landscape. We're not going to be the only show in town pretty soon here. We know this is a hot market. We know there's a lot of need. So we anticipate this, but right now what we're looking at is some gaps, some real gaps that we're hoping to fill. And that's particularly in the residential charging zones with compared to a lot of the commercial zones, which truly, if you're traveling, you're going places, that's not usually where you're going. You're not going to a Target in another city. You go to Target when you're in your hometown. You're going into a residential area. You're going to have dinner downtown somewhere. You're maybe going to a park. These are all places that we see as being really hot areas for having our charging capabilities in our marketplace. We're also standardizing a lot of things. So it's not only the charging unit, but it's also the network itself, which is really important. And that'll be comparable to a commercial grade charging unit. Being able to book in advance and being able to provide cash payments to our marketplace vendors. That's huge. That's not happening now. That's really what we're dedicated to. We want to be able to make money all around the block, be able to create this additional infrastructure and be able to do it really streamlined and really successfully. I'll turn it back to you, Angel.
So when we're looking at what we already have been able to accomplish, we are a registered LLC. We have made waves. We have competed in multiple innovation competitions and have won. We recently won the Big Bang. We're a Big Bang winner and a Little Bang winner. In addition, currently we're part of two prestigious accelerators. We are gaining steam in social media, and we are developing our MVP. We hope to get that launched by the end of summer. And hopefully we're able to absorb 500 customers who could give us that feedback we need to continue to improve our product. And we only get there to improving our product by making sure that we're able to apply for grant and seed funding. We want to hire staff. We want to make sure that the staff is ready and equipped to create that optimization algorithm that creates the platform that enhances usage for the driver and for the provider. In addition, once we launch, we hope to really focus in on those customers that will make our product even better. But most importantly, what is driving INNCHRG is our team. We are led by an electric vehicle researcher, arguably the best out of UC Davis and Corral book. And we are also led by a fierce business strategist. And if you are part of the energy sector in Sacramento, you know Meredith Roberts. So the future is very bright for our team. Electricity is everywhere, and we want a charge to be as accessible. INNCHRG's solution to the industry is bold. Like you mentioned earlier, Audentis Fortuna Invat. It means fortune favors the bold. And what we're trying to do is we want to have this discussion now that, look, people, INNCHRG is here. We are thinking big. We are risking big, and we're doing it because it's important. We are facing so many issues throughout the world, and climate change is one of the biggest issues that is impacting us now and will impact our children in the future. So, you know, when we think of INNCHRG, this is also part of INNCHRG. We want to make sure that we're not only creating a solution for EV drivers, but we're making a more livable world in the future. We are excited to answer questions. So please, any questions you guys have, ask away.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation. Very exciting. good to see, Meredith, that you're involved in so many things. I can't remember them all. Let me just begin the questions with, for any member of the team, if you knew then what you knew now, would you do anything differently in the way that you've built the business and pursued customers?
For myself, I probably would have started earlier answering that question. The more we are learning about the challenges with electrical vehicle charging, if we were able to implement our solution 5 years ago, potentially there would have been more electrical vehicles on the road now.
And where are you in terms of talking to electric vehicle owners about whether they like this service or not? What have you done on customer discovery?
Talking to customers. We are constantly talking to electrical vehicle owners, understanding their pain points, understanding what works for them, what does not, but we're taking it a step further. We're also talking with potential and interested electrical vehicle owners of the future. And they're telling us why when they made that choice on the lot, when they went out to buy a vehicle, why they made the choice to continue going with petroleum instead of electric. And what we're finding out is that they don't want to deal with the idea of range or charge anxiety. And when we talk to them about our solution, our value proposition just for electrical vehicle drivers, the ability to charge where you're going and the ability to book a charge ahead of time or on the go gives them that guarantee that having an electrical vehicle is just as valuable or even more valuable than owning a petroleum-based vehicle.
Well, and in terms of most people, you would think from a home would be dealing with a level 2 charger, and there are cheap ones that are fairly slow. I don't know what a fast level 2 charger costs, but usually you're getting less than 50 miles in an hour, even with a fast level 2 charger. Is that sort of your thought as to what people would be using under the network you're trying to create here?
The idea of our solution is to eliminate the time waste driving to a remote charging station, not knowing if that charging unit's going to be available, and having to wait charging someone remotely. So this is how we're different. Gary, instead of you having to drive and deviate from where you're going, you could go visit your son or daughter, brother or sister, and potentially through our marketplace, find a charging location that is walking distance. So essentially, the time you spent with your loved ones is time your car is spent charging. So we make you more efficient. You no longer have to drive out to that inconvenient location to charge and wait hours there. So that's part of our solution. That's part of our value proposition to drivers.
And so what does the owner of the charger do in the way of enforcement? They've got a reservation, but somebody pulls up and, they just say, or I don't know, if you don't have anybody out there watching the level 2 charger, maybe they just plug in. What does the owner of the charger do to enforce the reservation system that you've got in place?
I'll answer that, Gary, because that's a great question. And we've had so much good advice from early startup entrepreneurs saying, make sure that you have these problems because those are really good problems to have. But what we're going to be doing is looking at ways to have a sort of lockout tagout almost for this that's seamless and through the system. So it'll be by design. Again, these are design based and sort of the manufacturing side of it. And we're really first focused on making the app, making this seamless payment system, making this available, working on the network effect. But there will be a lot of stopgaps in place to make sure that not only for the provider, but also for the driver, that they're showing up at the right place at the right time. They're not going to have to boot anybody out or vice versa. And so there are a lot of these sort of challenges that we are grappling with and talking with people about, and making sure we have the best sort of path forward for when we come across these. And we know that those will happen, and that there will be a system in place to manage that. And I think I saw a couple of questions in the chat about multiple chargers, and that's great. You know, if you have a charger in your garage and then run a line that's outside, fantastic. You can be charging your own vehicle while you're putting your other charger up on the marketplace. There's a lot of creativity here in how the provider can enter the marketplace and make some, you know, make some income and be part of something really big, really good at providing for the community. And I think that the questions of security and safety, they're going to run along a similar path of all the other businesses that are out here putting their personal and private possessions on a more public space, like Airbnb, Uber cars, Lyft, all these companies that are saying, okay, get in my car, I'm a stranger, come into my house, we're all strangers. Those are good problems to have, and we're certainly investing the time early to make sure that we can overcome some of the issues, both technical and physical, with this technology.
I've got a question, because one of the things in the chat was, what's the difference between you and say EV Match? And one of the things that you've highlighted is quality of charge, and also from my interpretation, you're talking about you have kind of your own hardware for charging on. Is that correct? Now, is your platform going to eventually require everyone to have your hardware, or will you look to have something that ensures that quality of charge with other hardware? And also, because hardware is such a focus of it, what are your plans for building that hardware, designing that hardware? There's a lot of questions there, but I'm curious
Careful,
about all
Angel,
of them.
if you're going to answer this. We have some ideas cooking up, but I'll just say the one thing that I mentioned with the market. We really want to look at the available today, what the addressable market is. And those are people that already have installed whatever company. There's lots of chargers on the market right now. They've already got them installed and they can enter their marketplace. We certainly don't want that to be a barrier to entry. Angel, you might want to say something about the future of what we're trying to do.
Is just phase one of what could be accomplished. And phase one puts us, phase one is the idea that we want to utilize what's available, what people have in their garages that could enhance the current infrastructure. And we know right now that there's a lot of electrical vehicle owners that have a level 2 charger at home that's not being utilized. That's stage one. It's very simple, very basic. What makes us different is that we're not a peer-to-peer company. EV Matches. We understand one thing from peer-to-peer. It does not work. It's not standardized. The quality of service is not the same. And it's inconvenient for providers because it does not create the assurances providers need about knowing who's coming in, who's coming out, regulation, inflow, outflow of electricity. So what we're trying to do is something more. And I'll leave it just at that, Thomas, because I don't want to give away all of our secret sauce just yet.
Well, just remember there are some EVSE builders in our area, and from our talks with them, they're always looking for things like this to partner with, and have explicitly designed their hardware to do it. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking of just Clipper Creek in general there.
So Will Brieger asked a second part of his question is, do you need to move the charger to the, to the sidewalk, to the end of the driveway versus just connecting into your garage? And Will, across the street from Hacker Lab, where we reside, a guy ran a line out to the sidewalk, put a clay irrigation pipe in the ground and put the charger down. It looks so cool because it's all hand built, but he made himself a charge location just by doing something simple at the end of his driveway. So, you should already sign him up, Angel. But he's ready to go. He's right there by the sidewalk with the regular level 2 charger. So,
and I'm adding you on it too.
Yeah, that's right. So let's see. Peter Mackin had a question. Do you require the use of a custom EVSE, or can any EVSE be used?
what is the difference between customer EVC and any EVC?
I think he's referring to whether a proprietary one or whether you could use a charge point or a Clipper Creep.
Yeah. Hey, Thomas.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Peter. No, what I mean is any EVSE, that's the charger, right? That's the thing that plugs in the car. So I'm saying, can you use anything, or do you have to use the INNCHRG one? That's the question. And if you use anything, how are you going to be metering the electricity and making sure that that the customer, that the service provider isn't losing money on the service because the electricity ends up costing more than they're making?
Thanks for the clarification. I will echo what Meredith already said, that at first, at the beginning, we would like to use what is already existing in the market. So to start it going, and we would like to face those problems and aim to solve them. We are definitely thinking as the next phase, I hope the near future, that we will be able to install some sort of a metering so we can release the output energy and we can control it so nobody can steal the electricity. But we are anticipating that those problems will be raised and we are ready to solve them.
Well, one thing, because you were talking about going and figuring out the problems and solving them. I know you guys will be at the Sacramento Electric Vehicle Association meeting next month. That'd be a great place to collect all their information so you can share it with them. Peter here is the, I guess, president or whatever title
lead advisor, we call them.
Lead advisor of it. And if you see Katrina Sutton on the call, UC Davis graduate who studied EVs and SAC EV member. So you guys actually might already be familiar with her. So that's a great place to go and find people who have EV or charging problems and love to share them.
Have you looked into the legal status of the service you provide? Because there's some very arcane rules about selling electricity. And I don't know whether you get around them by selling a service, but it might be the only meter you need is a clock. Once you start saying you're selling kilowatt hours, you start needing to get engaged with the Bureau of Weights and Measures and make sure everything is accurate.
Yep, you nailed it right there, and we can. That's exactly what we're looking at. We understand, and there's going to be differences across the board. We want this to be scalable. What we do understand is that time is a good, not only value indicator, even if people aren't charging, they understand the value of time, and so that helps to constrain things. But also that would run into some issues if we were selling energy. So we do understand those constraints, and we're working to make sure that we're not running up against any issues on the conditions of that and the legal side of it. But great question. Yes, we will be certainly careful of how we are marketing. And I think that's the important element of it. I think for those that understand kilowatt hour and sort of on the technical side, it's important to know what's needed from a customer perspective. However, from a purely marketing and sales, it's not something we'd be able to actually sell.
Yeah.
Well, you want to. Yeah, this is Peter, though. You want to make sure that if you sell by time, that the charge varies by what the actual kilowatt hour or kilowatt flow is, because you don't want to charge them the same amount if like say they're charging at 30 kilowatts and 50 kilowatts, you don't want to charge them the same amount.
Right.
Per hour. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Any other questions from people watching here? Who else have we got here?
So I do have another question if nobody else has questions.
Sure.
I did put that question about EV Match, and in your slide it showed that EV Match doesn't provide reservations, but it looks like they actually do. So what other differentiation between EV Match and INNCHRG is there? I mean, you mentioned the peer-to-peer stuff, but I don't know how big of a deal that is. So I'm just curious.
EV Match has been changing a lot just within the last couple of months. They have changed their whole pricing structure. They have changed what they're trying to accomplish. Our whole mission, Peter, what we're trying to do is create the opportunity for anyone who owns private property, owns a home, owns a business, to join our marketplace to sell a charge. We want to install chargers at the pace that the industry leaders are installing chargers. ChargePoint, Tesla, but we want to do it at a low cost. We want to utilize private property, and by doing so, we could enhance the overall infrastructure. This is our mission. And this is why we say we're not a peer-to-peer company. We don't think it works. What we're trying to establish after is we want to standardize the service. And this is not with EV Match. If you look at the kind of chargers you'll find, they're everywhere. You could get 100. It goes from level 2, level 1, and within the level 2, there's different ranges. What we're trying to do is establish a standardization of quality, that if you charge in Sacramento, or you charge in Austin, Texas, or you charge in Washington, DC, that you're going to get the same quality of service. It's going to be the same experience. And when you have that person to technology interface, that that's also going to be the same experience. In addition, by creating the standardization of the charging infrastructure, it makes it easier for providers. Earlier, you were asking questions. How do you control the charge? Well, that's a big problem if you want to provide a charge in any marketplace. And what we're trying to do is, we don't want you to go out there and see who's coming. We want our technology to do that all for you. We want our technology to give you the assurances that you know that if someone's going to come, they already have a reservation. You know if they're going to charge in your system, how much electricity that's going to cost you, and how much money you're going to make from that charge. So we aim to standardize the quality, to standardize the product, and to really give that quality of service people could rely on. Peer-to-peer companies do not achieve that.
Okay. Yeah, and I have no problem with competition. I mean, the more the merrier, right? So yeah, I'm not saying that just because EV Match is there that you're not going to make it. I'm rooting for everybody.
Yeah, we're big. We're kind of excited to have some competition. Actually, there's a lot you can learn from. We've already learned a lot from our some predecessors and the way that commercial is going. Where we need to do is look at the opportunity, and I think that's what Angel touched on really well. Is where do we fill the gaps? And particularly, there's some areas and communities that really do need to have additional charging support. Especially, 80% is not 100% of people that have in-home chargers, and that's going to grow. Not everybody's going to be able to have at-home chargers that they've put in. Not all the time are things going to work out perfectly well. And so what we want to have is not only just emergency, but also a network that people can rely on, that they can rely on for their everyday charge. And I think it's important to get away from only commercial charging and start to look at a distributed network. Because as we mentioned, electricity is truly everywhere. There's an opportunity here to make some money for people who have chargers. And there's also, it's just an opportunity to have this be more community-based and to be communities supporting their community.
Yeah, and one thing I would add is that, this may not be your direct mission, but something you might want to consider is that, for EV adoption, one of the critical areas is MUDs, where, there's no charging in the MUD. So of course, it's hard for people that live in those dwellings to have EVs because there's no place to charge them. If you could find residences nearby that were, like you say, within walking distance, and get people to join up in your network, then the MUD residents could use your chargers. Another thing that would be helpful is not just residents, but work with landlords, because maybe the landlord would be willing to install the charger in a rental property and make money off of it. But even if the renter didn't have an EV, so there's lots of opportunity.
Exactly, it gives an alternate to what's out there now. And those, as you mentioned, the multi-unit dwellings, people often will move from single unit to multi-unit and back, and there's a lot of flex that happens, and especially as we look forward into the next 5 years of recovery, where are people going to be living and how are they going to be living? And as community planners are looking more towards walkable communities with multiple unit dwellings, it's, density is important, and this definitely factors that in as an option for the future that we think is really important and very valuable to communities and for planners.
All right, we're going to have the last question by Nikki here. When do you anticipate to start having this available to start advertising and finding customers, both homeowners and drivers?
To have a prototype launch in Davis and then move on to Greater Sacramento, hopefully by the end of this year, and early next year to really start expanding out more into the Roseville area, you know, the Greater Sacramento area. But we are working very hard. You know, we are part of 2 accelerators that are also helping us out to improve our product, and we're excited. And once Nikki, we will contact you to let you know. I'll make sure you're one of the first people to know that once we launch, that you help us with the marketing.
Awesome.
All right. I want to give a round of applause to INNCHRG for coming today. Thank you very much for coming and joining us and answering our questions. I want to thank both Meredith, Angel, and also Coral for helping answer questions and getting involved. I was only able to update the slides to add one of you on it, but thank you very much. Any last comments, Gary?
No, I just think you got a cool factor going in your favor here. I mean, even the choice of the name, you know, you're in charge. So social media is probably going to be a big part of your marketing campaign.
So follow them on LinkedIn.
Yeah, follow them on LinkedIn. But, you know, anything that you need from the community here or from CleanStart specifically, you let us know. So you got a cool idea here and we want to help.